Hey people, C Squared here. Today I'm going to give the G85 a little try as the vlogging type, selfie angle type of camera. Now I bought the G85 a little around a year ago, and I bought it as the V camera for my GH5, and I never really gave it that much of a thought as a primary vlogging type camera, because in the last year or so, Panasonic's put out a couple of different really decent firmware updates for the autofocus and everything on the GH5, and they haven't really done so much with the G85, and I just kind of figured it wasn't that good, so I really didn't think too much about it. But somehow it just occurred to me recently that maybe I should try it, because the camera is a little bit lighter. That's going to be better, and the IBIS is actually quite good on it, so as a trade-off, it might actually work better in some ways in terms of trading off a little bit of that weight, and it might not be as perfect in some ways or as good or high performance in some ways. But for most of the vlogging type video shots, I think it would do really well. So I'm going to give it a try, and I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I've got the G85 on a little cheap tripod. I'm using this cheap mini tripod because it's a little bit longer legs than my Manfrotto mini tripod, so I can extend a little further, and that helps because when you're shooting 4K with the G85, it does crop in just a little bit extra, so it tightens the frame a little bit, and I want to be able to get it further away from me. Now I'm using a 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8 version 2 Panasonic Lumix lens, so that's a good lens, and it's got the dual image stabilization ability between this lens and the camera, so you get the smooth motion, so that's a really cool thing. And then I'm using the autofocus on the camera, and it's going to be set to one area for some of the shots, and it's going to be set to face tracking for some of the shots, because I think those two, the one area and the face tracking or face detection, are the two kinds of autofocus that most people want to use. So we'll try those two out, and also we'll probably do a little brief comparison with the GH5 since I have it with me as well. I'm out in this little park, so sunlight's pretty bad today. It's going to be pretty harsh for the camera, so it'll be a real challenge. Oh, and I'm also using a Tiffin ND filter on the lens, and I've got the camera set for aperture priority in movie shooting, and that gives me the ability to access the auto ISO feature, which for some reason you can't get to that in manual movie, which I would have preferred because I do like keeping the shutter speed the same if possible. But out of the two, really, for the look of these videos, I would rather have the aperture stay at f2.8 and let the shutter speed go up and down a bit than to change the entire look of the video with having the aperture changing and the shutter speed staying the same. So just a trade-off there with this camera, just kind of how it works. And anyway, so we're going to check that out. I'm using a Rode Video Mic Pro on top of the camera, and I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'll tell you about anything else that I think of as I'm shooting. Oh, and it's 24 frames per second, 4K. And when I shoot on the GH5, I'll try to do a very similar format and settings so we can see how they compare. So anyway, let's get to it. Okay, so right now I'm set to face tracking or face detection, eye detection mode, and we'll see how it does. It's real bright out here, and I'm going to be going in and out of some shadows, and I've got the ND filter cranked down just a little bit, and we've got the auto ISO and all that sort of helping out, so we'll see how it does going in and out. But the main thing is, will it stay in focus? That'll be our big question here. So the box is staying on me, doing pretty well, but a little bit out of breath. I've been walking pretty fast trying to get to a good spot to do this, trying to dodge all the dogs and walkers and all kinds of crap. So anyway, going to the woods here, so hopefully it's adjusting pretty well with the exposure and maintaining that focus, so we'll see how that does. And when we get to the end of this, I'm going to turn around and actually I may just do it wherever I see anything I can put the focus on here other than myself, just to see how it will do with grabbing focus on just some other point of interest and then coming back to myself. Actually, there's a little church up here. Maybe we'll try that. Alright, so I'm coming out to a little opening here, and there's a little church, and I'm going to take the the camera and turn it around, point it at the church like you might need to do. And it's on focus, or in focus on me right now. Let's turn it around. Zoom in on that little church a little bit. And now I'm gonna come back around to me. Okay, so I'm not used to doing this too much, so I'm a little bit funny with it, but not a pro vlogger at all. So anyway, hopefully that worked out pretty well, and now I will try some of the other focus modes, or actually just the other one that I'm interested in, which is the one area. So we'll switch over to that, so I'll be back momentarily. Alright, so now I'm using the one area autofocus, and I've placed a little target box sort of right here where it's sort of in the general vicinity of my my chin and neck, because it feels like if I put it up where my face is, I'm going to be more likely to accidentally move out of the box. So anyway, in a little safer spot there, trying to keep it generally in focus. So we'll see how it does. We're going back through some of the same area that I was shooting the face tracking or face detection mode in. So we'll see how it does. Gonna go right back through here into the woods. We'll see if the exposure adjusts well. A lot of strange dappled sunlight and shade and stuff, harsh shadows. Seems to do pretty well glancing at the monitor. Alright, so coming right through here. Hopefully the IBIS is looking pretty good. Seems to always do pretty well on this camera. I've been very impressed with it. Maybe I'll let this run while I'm going through here and just do a little speed ramp on it, and we'll see if it stays in focus. Alright, now that I'm back here with the little church, I'm going to do another little move of going from me to the church and let you see that and see how well we can get the focus to move from that back to me. I'm just going to even tap it and let it focus on the church. Back to me. Alright, so hopefully that worked out pretty well. And we'll check it out and compare. Okay, I've switched over to the GH5, and I'm using the same lens, same ND filter, and I'm using the same Rode video mic, but I'm using a different little tripod because I don't trust that flimsy little tripod I was using on the G85 on the GH5, just because it's a little bit heavier. Okay, the light is a little different now. It's gotten even more bright, so the camera's really having to fight adjusting for the different exposure that it needs. But the little box is staying on my face pretty well. Hopefully it's staying in focus. Walk through this same little shady patch here, and we'll see how the GH5 does in comparison to the G85 as far as keeping things in focus and keeping that exposure right. It is a little bit heavier, so it's making my shoulder kind of tired to hold it out like this, especially with this shorter little tripod from Manfrotto.
I'm going to Jackson.
I do like the ability to set the shutter angle at 180 degrees and let the auto ISO just kind of move the exposure around. That in combination with this ND filter, and you got a pretty good bit of range to play with without adjusting any other settings. Here I'm at the opening where the little church is again, and we'll do the same little focus pulling between me and the church. So again, got me in focus, church in the background, and I'm going to move out of the frame, and we'll see if it can get the church and then come back to me. Good question. Okay, now we're in one area mode with the GH5, or one area autofocus. And I've got the little box here in the same kind of area that I did with the G85 a few minutes ago. And we'll see how it does. Again, main challenge here I think, is for it to keep the focus with such radically changing light. Going in and out of these extreme shadows, very bright and sunny today, in spite of how kind of cool it is. No real leaves on the trees to amount to anything other than pine needles, and so you just get these real hard shadows coming off of all the tree trunks that are bare. Again, the GH5 is just heavy enough on this little Manfrotto mini tripod that it will tire your arm out. I'm getting a little winded. You might be laughing. Hopefully I won't pass out and fall down here in the woods. It's not that bad. It's just not terribly comfortable after a while. So if you're using the GH5 for vlogging, you're probably smart enough to use a longer tripod to do this with, and either that or you just got really strong arms, good stamina. So all right, so I'm far enough down this little trail. Now I'm going to turn around and go back through, and we'll go back through the same way we just came. Hopefully the wind's not just absolutely ruining the audio here. A little bit more gusty occasionally than I expected. But when I go back through this, we'll come back out over at the little church and do another little focus transition, automatic focus transition, and see how the camera handles that. Okay, I'm back at the church here, and I'm going to do the little focus transition again. So I should be in focus because I've got the box right here on me, and now I will move the focus to the church. Hopefully that's working. Back to me again. It's the little screen's far enough away now that I can't really tell for sure. You're seeing it. I guess I've seen it by now looking in the computer. Back to the church again. This time I'll zoom in. Okay, let's get it right there. Okay, back to me. Okay, so that does it pretty much for the two little ways I wanted to compare the G85 and the GH5. So this was the GH5. We'll see how it compared to the performance of the G85, because I'm really hoping the G85 does this well enough that it makes a pretty solid choice for vlogging. So anyway, we'll check that out and see how it looks in the computer. Okay, I'm back on the G85 with face tracking, and that was pretty much everything I wanted to check on it. If you've got any ideas about different ways to do the autofocus and different things that are important for the G85 with regards to vlogging, I'd like to hear it, so leave it in the comments. And if you like this video, click like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. One area autofocus with, so this is one area autofocus. Maybe I can do it better. Again, I'm not a professional vlogger. Let me just move this over. I keep looking at the screen, so that probably looks pretty stupid. Probably focus faster if I could keep the camera steady.